Hello, my friends, my fellow Harmonauts, and welcome to the Harmony Garage. I am Sam Harrison. I'm the head of ecosystem growth here for the Harmony Foundation. And this is an authentic Silicon Valley garage. It's mine. I live here. I work here. I've been working in my garage for the last 14 months, thanks to the pandemic. And it's been great. It's absolutely been fantastic. And I couldn't be happier to invite you into my garage virtually, of course, and let you hang out. Now, I will mention that during the summertime, it can get a little toasty, a little warm in here, but it's fantastic. And I'm so glad to be able to engage with our community and talk with you about what's happening with Harmony. So today, for example, we are partnering with our Reddit community and our Twitter community to do an Ask Me Anything, an AMA, a video AMA with Peter Abilla, who is the head of marketing and partnerships and community here at the Harmony Foundation. It was a great conversation. The community asked some really good, really hard-hitting questions, and Peter handled them very well, and it was terrific. And so you'll see that after this kind of opening monologue, I guess you could say, about this opening bit. As we get started, I just wanted to congratulate the community. You guys, this last week has been tough. It has been a rough week. But Harmony and the community has weathered it really, really well. And that's really a testament. I mean, it's a testament to the technology. It's a testament to the core team. But honestly, it's a testament to you, our Harmonauts and your diamond hands. You have really weathered this well, and I cannot be more grateful. As we jump in, before we start, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Harmony in general. Right. So the first thing I want to talk about is a project I've been working hard on that I have been calling the Great DAO Initiative. No one else calls it that. It's a really bad name. But over the course of the next several months, the Harmony Foundation will be putting $10 million into a variety of DAOs, seeding them and launching them so that the decentralized nature of the Harmony project really gets pushed out into the hands of our community. Now, our first DAO, the validator DAO, we've already gotten some steps done, right? They've already passed 4 different votes about governance on how many coins that you have to be able to stake, on the governance process itself, on validator fees and how low they can go. They established a floor for those, and it's been doing really well. This coming week, opening on Sunday, is going to be the election for the initial council of the validator DAO. Now, the initial council will really put together the constitution, for lack of a better word, for the validator DAO. And it's great. If you're interested in learning more about who they are and who's running for the validator council, visit talk.harmony.one, talk.harmony.one, and you'll see some really great candidates for the initial council. But the validator council or the validator DAO is only the first step. I'm already working hard at work on the community DAO. That's coming together very, very nicely. And then we will also have a marketing DAO and an incubation DAO, and we'll have regional DAOs. And we may have something that I'm thinking about in my head as a sponsorship DAO. And there's one that I'm very excited about called a social fairness or charitable giving DAO, which is also really interesting. It's still very early days for all of these projects, but I'm incredibly excited about the road ahead, about what we're going to see and what we're going to build, and how decentralization really is moving beyond simply the ledger of the technology into the administration of the funds and the administration from the community. And it's great. Very thrilled. The next piece I want to talk a little bit about is just some amazing growth that we've seen in our DeFi ecosystem. I'm really impressed by what's happening. If you look at all the various different cross-chain bridges, if you look at the various different DEXs, if you look at the various different ways in which DeFi is being used right now on the Harmony blockchain, you'll see that we have over $20 million locked up in these various different packages, I guess is one way to call it. 20 million total value locked TVL. That's amazing. So my fantastic and great congratulations to the entire teams on what they've built and the value that they've crystallized. This is absolutely amazing. The next thing I want to give you a brief update on is our NFT projects. I love NFTs. I think there's so much potential around a non-fungible token that I'm very excited to see where it goes. The Da Vinci Gallery, DaVinci.gallery, which is our preeminent NFT marketplace, has only been live for about a month. But during that month, we now have over 1,000 artists minting NFTs on the Da Vinci Gallery. We have minted over 10,000 NFTs. To put that in proper context, by the way, take those 10,000 NFTs, try to go mint them over on Ethereum. The costs associated with doing that would bankrupt a small country. It's unbelievable. And yet it has happened so quickly and so cheaply and so amazingly, that's not a word, and so impressively on the Harmony blockchain. Now, also what's going on in Harmony right now is we are running, there is an auction for Hi-Rez, the rapper, for some songs and albums there on Da Vinci as well. So check that out. Finally, about the NFT marketplace, one of the things I really want to say is not only is the cost so incredibly low for minting an NFT, but the energy expenditure, the carbon footprint for minting an NFT on Harmony is next to nothing. It's so small that it doesn't even make sense to talk about. It doesn't have any sort of impact. And that's amazing because, you know, with Harmony, so many things are real, right? So the clean NFT, it's not just a hashtag for Harmony. It's a serious thing. Sustainability and growth and all that is so important for us. And so it's very, very fun to see how that is developing and how that's going. So honestly, that's it for the updates for today. There's always so many more I could go into. We could talk about partnerships. We could talk about, I don't know, going on vacation, traveling, the beach. I love the beach. But I do want to get into the AMA with Peter because it was fantastic. I'm sure you're waiting for it too. You can take a look down here in the thread, in the timeline, and you'll see a couple of different marks, a couple of different hashes. We have added timestamps so that you can skip to specific questions about, you know, whatever one you are interested in. Peter and I have a great conversation throughout the whole one. There are some follow-ups that I make to questions that were asked by our community. And so I think you'll really enjoy listening to the whole thing. At the end of the day, this is our first one. So if there are any troubles, if there are any problems, if I hit the table too often, just let me know. I'm so incredibly happy to engage and make this better because honestly, it's all about our community. I say it a couple of times in the AMA, but blockchains live and die off the strength of their community. You can't have a decentralized network without a community willing to run the nodes and get engaged. And so from me to all of you out there, all of our Harmonauts, thank you very much. I'm so excited to chat with you all today. Obviously, we also have Peter Abilla with us on this call. Peter, wave, say hi.
Hey, everybody.
Peter, anything else you want to add as far as, you know, what's going on or what's happening? Anything really exciting that you want to dig into? Are you excited about this AMA?
No, I'm excited about this AMA. I especially love the, you know, as we march towards decentralization, that we're spinning up these DAOs so that the community can really drive where the ecosystem goes. And so I love that. And of course, I've been, you know, smack dab in the middle of our DeFi kind of growth and very excited about that.
Yeah, no, it's been great work. Every single time that I engage with any projects with you, Peter, I'm just amazed about how much you get done. Do you actually only have 24 hours in a day? Because I swear you have more. I swear the amount of work you get done, you've got to have more hours.
You know, I heard a long time ago, if you want to get something done, give it to someone who doesn't have any time. And it's kind of true. It's like, I've got family, kids, all of that. And I'm just lucky I get to be part of the Harmony ecosystem.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun to work on things you're passionate about.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me give a little background because Peter, you and I have known each other for a while. Peter joined Harmony smack dab in the middle of the pandemic, July 2020, and he joined it to lead marketing, partnerships, and community. And he's done a terrific, tremendous job from my point of view. Now, Peter also cut his teeth, though, in the marketing world in a couple of really small companies that no one has really heard of, but I'm really excited to shed some light on them. They need some marketing help. Amazon is one of them. Another one is eBay. Not sure if anyone knows what eBay is anymore. But he's also worked a lot in some business to business or B2B startups. In 2016 is when you joined kind of the blockchain community. Now, a lot of the time people talk about how you fell down the rabbit hole. I'm not as interested in that question because it's so done. Like, so many people talk about that. But what I would like to know a little bit about is, we all have our reasons for coming into the blockchain space. We all hear these promises about what the technology can do. For you, once blockchain is actually adopted far and wide, what is the most exciting thing? What is the most exciting change that you could see this technology do?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. For me, it's not so much ideological, like some people approach the concept of blockchain. For me, I'm quite pragmatic. Like, what does it really do for human beings? What does it do to make our life better? And so far, what I'm seeing, and I've been in the blockchain space for a little bit and have experienced it from the enterprise side, and so I have a point of view on that side, but also on kind of like the user facing side, so I guess non-enterprise. And what I really love is how blockchain enables people to really kind of own their own destiny. And you see this especially in DeFi, where people are able to participate in these ecosystems, earn a yield, be able to participate without anyone telling them what to do, what not to do. They have full control over their destiny. Now, with that comes good and bad. They can earn money, they can participate in some interesting farms and yield kind of growing opportunities. And you could also, some people have lost a lot. And so comes with quite a bit of responsibility. But that's really what the most exciting part for me is, that people get to own their own destiny. And that's not something that initially one would think about with blockchain, really, but it's the thing that I'm most excited about.
That's very cool. That's a very cool idea. I don't think we talk enough about kind of the being able to own one's own destiny. We are so used to just being a cog that fits in a wheel, or doing what's expected of us, or my father was an accountant, so I'm going to be an accountant, and we're all going to follow into the family biz. Right. But the idea of really being able to break free and own your life, I think there's a depth there that's really strong.
Yeah. I mean, the concepts around self-sovereignty, censorship resistance, those have been around for a while. But the idea of sovereignty over kind of your own assets has really kind of come to life in DeFi. Yeah. Whereas I think prior to that, it was almost not rhetoric, but really kind of a nice, almost empty kind of saying. Yeah. But in DeFi, it's like, it's very real. It's like you really own your destiny with what you do with your assets. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. On that point, though, there were a bunch of promises that early blockchain gave us. Mm-hmm. Some of these promises did not pan out, right? Are there any particular promises around blockchain, around cryptocurrency, that because they did not pan out, you are the most disappointed with? You're like, I really wish that could have been true, but it wasn't.
Most disappointed with, that's not really how I think. I'll tell you a surprising disappointment. So initially around 2015, 2016, this idea of, an infinite ledger where all transactions are recorded, has appeared at the time to be a very good application for supply chain. And when I first jumped into blockchain, I spent some time in the supply chain world with a couple of blockchain kind of supply chain startups, and really cut my teeth in kind of meeting with these very large supply chain companies. One example is we met with the largest supply chain distributor and company in the world. They drive around big brown trucks. And the meeting was about how could we do a pilot with this project that I was working with alongside their current solution that they used for something called procurement. And the meeting went really well, but the outcome was, you guys aren't quite ready yet. Here we've trained 40,000 people on how to use this system and have spent, several tens of millions of dollars training people, investing in this system. No way are we going to try yours to replace this. But, we can continue to have this conversation and be friends. And that taught me a pretty powerful lesson and the enterprise world is just a very, very different space. Yeah. And blockchain has not really taken off in the enterprise space. And I think for lots of really good reasons. And one of those reasons is the example I just shared. These enterprise companies have spent lots and lots of money on their current solutions, and replacing those is a huge amount of effort and money, retraining people, et cetera. And so I guess one of the most, disappointing, surprising kind of things is that initially I thought blockchain would be a perfect fit in the supply chain space, but turns out not really.
Yeah, it's tough. Like overcoming a lot of the inertia for enterprise solutions is massive. Like it's so difficult because from our side, sitting in the blockchain space or sitting on novel technology, we have the vision of what it's capable of doing. But sometimes we lose track of, like you said, to your point, that history that got the existing enterprise solutions to where they are. Like they have been modified and modified and modified to become the most perfect fitted tool for their purpose. They are definitely fit for purpose. And our solutions, our visionary solutions, aren't quite there yet.
And really one big surprising thing for me, as a technologist, I didn't think about this, but introducing a new technology into the enterprise has more to do with change management than technology. That's like what this person shared was, he said 40,000 people have been trained to use their procurement system. And retraining 40,000 people to the new system is not trivial. Yeah. And that was a big deal to him. So the discussion was not even about novel technology. It was about, this has a big impact on our people. Yeah. And I don't think most technologists think about that. And so I think thinking about the change management is really a critical piece if we were to bring blockchain to kind of a broader adoption.
I agree. And I think that's a fantastic insight. So I can't wait to hear you shouting that insight from the mountaintops and making sure everybody out there really understands building the tech is not enough. We have to go further. We have to go farther. Before we dive into the questions from our community, from our online community, I want to put a little bit of a human face on us, on the Harmonauts. For a lot of us, crypto is life, right? But we know that that's not true. Even though we seem to always be talking about yields and transaction times and block production and staking and what have you, sometimes we sound a little bit like, my wife is really into CrossFit, so all she does is talk about CrossFit. There was a time, Pete, you and I remember this, when I was doing the keto diet, and all I would do is talk about keto. So sometimes we're right down that path, but we're not one-dimensional beings. When you're not talking crypto, what is the thing that you do in your life that you are the most passionate about? If I said, okay, Pete, you're going to give a TED talk right now for 15 minutes, it cannot be about crypto, what would you go in on?
Wow, that's a pretty deep question, Sam. I fundamentally believe that that human beings were put on this earth to help each other. So if I were to give a TED talk, I think I would talk about how to be kind and serve each other, and probably tell stories around that.
That's amazing. Um, I may embarrass you just a little bit here, Peter, because I'm one of your biggest fans. Peter and I have worked together a couple of times before, and what he just said is actually, it's not fluff. Like I said earlier, the clean NFT is not just a hashtag for harmony. When Peter talks about how to be kind to one another, it's not just a hashtag for him. I've seen it over and over and over again, and it's one of the reasons why I was so happy when he reached out again, to have me come work with him. So now that I've made you properly embarrassed, let me turn the teeth over to our great community. Awesome. Online. We have several questions that have been coming in from both Reddit and Twitter. Just for all of you out there, we have great communities on Reddit. We have great communities on Twitter. We also are on Telegram and Discord. There will be a ton of ways in which you guys can get in contact with us. At the end of the day, blockchain is 100% about communities. You can't have a decentralized network without having a strong community. And so we just really love our community, and we want to do everything to be as responsive and involved with this community. Yep. So let's dive into the questions a little bit. Now, first, I'll say every single one of these questions start off by thanking you. They say, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you for doing this AMA. We're so excited to get an opportunity to engage. And so this first one is from Reddit user named Toaster, TOAHSTERSG. I'm going to pause before I go into the question. This is actually a very interesting example of why something like domain NFTs would be interesting. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't say this username's name, but I want to give him or her the shout out and the credit for the question. But if you went to crazy.one and signed up for Samuel Harrison.crazy.one, I'd be able to say, okay, Samuel Harrison dropped this. Just let me plug a little project that benefits our community.
That's a really good plug. Love it.
All right. So Toastering says, some people would criticize Harmony as being directionless with no clear goal, despite the fact that it has top tier technology and a fantastic development team. So how would you respond to the concerns about directionlessness or lacking a clear goal?
First off, I want to thank the user for the community member for asking that question. And I think it's a really fair question. As I step back and as I think, if I were in the position of a community member, like, what's the Harmony team doing? We see them building stuff. We see them, announcing these partnerships, building kind of DeFi partnerships and growing, metrics here and there. And I want to acknowledge that as a team, we need to be telling the community more about kind of like our plans. We have published our roadmap, which focuses on, decentralization, interoperability, and governance, right? But from a marketing perspective, I don't think we've done such a great job in explaining kind of our thinking. And so I want to take the time to do that now. I think directionless is a fair criticism, but let me kind of add some context. When I joined about 10 months ago, I first so first of all, I come from the Ethereum world. And so when I joined Harmony, I had to quickly learn about where I was, the community, and really about where, I had to quickly do an assessment of where we were. And at the time, Harmony was very focused on, it had just launched its mainnet and had been focused on kind of growing Pangea and the validator ecosystem and really trying to become this decentralized network. And I quickly realized that, our community, which is amazing and large, was one of our strong points. That was my first assessment, first conclusion. Second conclusion was, we didn't have a lot of developers building on Harmony. And that actually made sense because that wasn't the focus at the time, because we hadn't launched we had just launched our mainnet. And so very few developers knew about us. Well, what will attract developers to build on our chain? Well, our chain was easy to build on, there were other services, other kind of interoperable services and features and technologies that they could work with, that would be very attractive to them. But it turns out that not a lot of developers knew about Harmony, and not a ton of blockchain projects knew about Harmony. Yet we had this huge Harmony community. And so at the time, we had to make kind of a choice. Like, okay, how do we grow Harmony, like the actual blockchain? We have this really huge supportive community, yet we have this chain that is like fast and cheap, but not a ton of people were using. And so we needed to make some changes. And so the way I think about it is, if you're kind of like sitting in a rowboat or a canoe and you're kind of tipping to one side, what's the first reaction? You have to go to the other side, right?
You jerk back,
Yeah, to balance it out. And so, and that's kind of a good analogy, I think. We had a really large and thoughtful and supportive Harmony community, but developers and other blockchain projects didn't know about us. Mm-hmm. And so we had to put our resources in really trying to grow developers, grow our partnership ecosystem. And that's really been the focus for the last, 6 to 8 months or so. And I'm really pleased with the results. I acknowledge that we did that really at the expense of our other kind of audience segments that are really important, but didn't need as much attention as really growing our developers and blockchain ecosystem. Like, we really needed to do that. And I think we're at a point now where we can take a more balanced approach in addressing the needs of developers, continuing to grow our blockchain ecosystem, and also address the needs of people that are new to crypto, that might be new to Harmony, and also, of course, our current Harmony ecosystem and Harmony community. So I think we're going to take a much more balanced approach now. But I just wanted to explain kind of the road we've taken the last 10, 11 months, why, and kind of where we're going to go next. Yeah. So
let me ask you a quick follow-up, because we are doing this great, huge initiative towards DAOs where some of the responsibilities for these things are going to start being completely decentralized. To the potential criticism about being directionless, do you envision an organizational challenge to ensure that all of these various different DAOs have a direction?
Yeah, but that's kind of the nature of decentralization. It's we'll have to figure it out as we go. Yeah. There will be some things that until we get to a level of brand awareness that the Harmony team must continue to do. So, for example, we recently launched, sushi the sushi team deployed Sushi Swap on Harmony. That only came about because of the relationships that a few of us at Harmony already had with the sushi team. I don't see that type of thing being done by community DAOs yet. Gotcha. Unless, of course, there are members of the community DAO that have relationships with these other projects. Then that would be great. Right. But until that happens, we are going to continue to do some things that probably might not fit within the DAO model yet, but we want to move that way. So to your question about confusion, yeah, I think there's going to be, but that's, this is everybody's blockchain, and we need to figure out how to work together and make it grow together.
Yeah, there's a quote that I think is very apropos of this stage, which is, look, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. Yeah. And I think that's really what we want Harmony and the whole blockchain to be, is a chain that goes the distance, that goes far, that goes together and brings everybody along. Thank you. That's a great, fantastic conversation from that first question. So thank you, Toasterj. I'm sorry. I'm going to butcher the names. And even if it was in human legible, but in a foreign language, I'd probably also butcher it as well. Let's move on to the next question. This one is from a Reddit user named Readers Are Redditors, which I fully agree on. This question says, what are the qualifications for Harmony to consider someone as a partner? How does Harmony assist their partners to ensure that they are successful and don't die? He or she puts in quotes, or these partnerships are forgotten. So what do we do that? How do we select partnerships, and how do we make sure that these partnerships thrive after they've minted the partnership agreement?
Okay, no, that's a good question. So the nature of blockchains is that we're permissionless. Literally anybody can build on Harmony. And in fact, many do build on Harmony without us even knowing about it, which is frustrating for me because I want to know so that we can give them the right kind of marketing support, go-to-market support, that type of thing. But that's what blockchain is. It's permissionless. I think in terms of qualifications, there's really a couple of ways that we've approached the partnership question. There are a set of partnerships that come in through inbound. These are other teams that want to partner with us or integrate their service with Harmony. And then there's a set of partnerships that are outbound, meaning that I or Stephen or others do our own outreach. And these are typically to bigger name projects, projects that are well known and have more users. And so that's really the kind of like the two ways we consider partnerships. We have a strategy around that. And right now our goal is to grow our DeFi ecosystem. And so far we have about 28 projects within the Harmony DeFi ecosystem. These projects range from automated market makers to DEXs to oracles, and as well as our bridges into the ecosystems that our bridges bridge to. And so our goals right now are to grow some of those metrics, so to grow the metrics of our bridge. And in order to do that, we first need to bridge to these ecosystems, provide incentives for growth. And so one example, and this is not something that, actually we did talk about it. Yeah, so you just mentioned it earlier in your opening monologue. Dialogue, monologue, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think there are any jokes in that thing, so I'm hesitant to call it a monologue. But let's just say my opening blurb, my spiel.
Opening statement. So you mentioned we have 20 million value locked on our bridge, which is great. But what if we could grow that to 100 million through providing incentives to these other communities so that they would use our bridge? Meaning that, let's say they would move, ERC20 tokens on our bridge and then use those wrap tokens to do things with other kind of projects. That's kind of the thing that we're thinking about now, is like, how can we grow these metrics? And in order to grow these metrics, we need to work with some of these teams that can help us get there. And so one of the DeFi primitives that we're really working on right now is we want to be able to provide borrowing and lending for one, and to be able to collateralize, assets and then borrow one. And we're working, that's been our focus for the last, probably couple of weeks. And very pleased about the progress there. Why is that important? It's important because almost every economy starts off with borrowing, right? You borrow, you invest, you build, and then you pay back. Like literally every economy since the history of time starts with borrowing. And that's a key DeFi primitive that we need to have in our ecosystem, and we're working on it. So back to the question of qualifications. Well, so there's the inbound coming in, outbound stuff. Qualifications, it has to be aligned to our goals. And our goals right now are to grow our DeFi ecosystem and to grow the number of users and actual on-chain transactions. And so if it meets that criteria, and if it doesn't require a ton of integration hand-holding from us, then that partnership will get some attention. But if it requires a lot of hand-holding, then it might take a while to integrate. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers I
think it does. I think it goes through a lot. So. I think one of the things that I thought about when you talked about your insight that economies start with borrowing, if you think about what currency is, It's an IOU note. It's you have borrowed something of value and you're promising to repay it. Like
Exactly.
in principle, the US dollar back on the gold standard, I am borrowing gold from the federal government. And if anybody took my IOU note into a Federal Reserve Bank, they could receive gold in return. And so making sure that we have this financial primitive on our chain is 100% vital to the growth of the ecosystem. Moves us
totally
away
agree.
from bartering chickens and eggs, right? Like it's
right.
just so much more powerful.
Yeah. If I could say one more thing too, that the what is also really unique about Harmony is our interoperability and this idea of cross-chain, right? It's really unique because other projects talk about cross-chain. We're actually doing it. And creating a bridge to another ecosystem is not a trivial thing. Like our engineers have done amazing work. And so, but what that means from a borrowing and lending perspective is that, community members from another ecosystem could bridge and then borrow one, and then vice versa. And it creates really this, this analogy of like cities and bridges between cities. It creates a really wonderful ecosystem. And I'm really, really excited that Harmony's doing that. And it's actually playing a really critical part in that.
No, I think it's fantastic. It's again one of the situations where cross-chain is not just a hashtag for Harmony.
Right.
Like we focus in on it.
Right.
So the next question we have from Reddit is from, I love this particular username, Compost Capital. I really feel like there's this great paradox in there where both it's compost and also I don't think the spelling is the same, but like the capital of compost, or is it like it's an investment, capital investment? Anyway, so kudos to you, Compost Capital, for a very fun username. The question is, there has been a lot of discussion in the community around how marketing could be the missing piece that will drive adoption. What role do you personally think marketing will play in growing the adoption of Harmony among both users and institutions?
Okay, well, let's define adoption, right? So Harmony is an agnostic platform that developers build on. What do they build on Harmony? They build apps. The goal of each of these apps is to grow users. And so the responsibility of growing users belong to the applications that build on Harmony. Of course, Harmony is successful when, our goal is to help these application developers grow their apps and users on their apps. And so we're going to continue to do that. But really the question of adoption is at multiple layers. There's adoption for developers, meaning can we grow developers building on Harmony? That's one level of adoption. Another level of adoption is users using the apps on Harmony. And that's another level of adoption. And the responsibility of the Harmony community and the Harmony team is a little bit different across those different levels. Now, the questioner also said something about institutions, adoption for institutions. If that has to do with B2B, kind of like enterprise, we spoke about that earlier. That we're not seeing hardly any adoption in the enterprise space. We're seeing some news, but actual usage is almost non-existent. And so so in terms of product market fit, that concept of really, which is really another word for adoption, there isn't really any in the enterprise space.
Right.
Not yet.
Not yet. Do you think that, we always have to find that killer app that breaks open a market? There's a lot of discussion right now around NFTs, around, Top Shot for the NBA, around a variety of gaming companies using, their digital assets and turning them into NFTs. Do you think that is an avenue for institutional or business adoption of blockchain technology, is by embracing the NFT trade? And importantly, if it's not, why not?
I don't know. When I think of the NFT when I think of NFTs, the adoption has been primarily within retail. Mm-hmm. And these are really collectors. Excuse me. Oh. Excuse me. And the same collectors that you'd see, you know, collecting baseball cards or any kind of collector item, right? Same characteristics. But if you look at the actual purchasers of the high value NFTs, these are actually like, we know some of them, or at least we know something about them, and they're whales. They're already crypto whales. And so they don't represent the normal buyer of NFTs.
That's a good point.
For example, with Beeple, you know, his piece of art sold for 60 some million. Well, who bought it? Like 2 crypto whales, you know, to make a point. And, you know, that's not like a normal person thing. Right. When I think of blockchain and decentralization, it's more about the rest of us. Mm-hmm. And when I think NFTs, I think more about the participation of really everyday people, more so than institutions. Really, from the institution side, I don't see any participation really, at least for NFTs, other than these talent agencies or auction houses like Christie's. Right. You know, they're an enterprise, but their job is to sell. Right. And so, I don't know. I'd have to think more about that.
Yeah, I totally surprised you with that follow-up question. But I think your answer was very cogent and very understanding. And I think you provided some incredibly good insight around retail purchasing and selling versus institutional use. And I think that's vital. So going back to your initial point that we've talked about, I think this is the third time, is we got to be ready. Product market fit has to be there. Like to be able to replace existing tools in the marketplace, we have to have that functionality. Okay, right. So I wanted to jump to the next one. This is again from another Reddit user. Now, this particular username I like. There is one of my favorite crypto podcasts, unfortunately no longer done, is called Grind My Gears. And this is with Jill Carlson and Milton Demers. And this user is Grind My Gears 07. So don't think it's Melt, but maybe. So this question says, Harmony's stated goal is to be consensus for 10 billion future people. Would it not be wise to have marketing target every segment? For example, for those who are tech savvy, the message would be 2-second finality. For those who are not tech savvy, the message may include additional information like transactions completed in 2 seconds while Bitcoin takes 10 minutes. I'm very interested to hear what your plans are and how this level of targeting messaging could be accomplished.
I think Grind My Gears 07 is spot on. We are evaluating right now and doing a little bit of a kind of a brand refresh. We recognize the various audiences that we serve. And what we need to do is we really need to tailor our positioning and messaging across all of those audience segments. And so Grind My Gears 07 is spot on. That's something we need to do and we're going to do. In fact, in the next couple of weeks, that's going to be kind of the focus is around how do we update our messaging such that it meets the needs of our various segments, audience segments. And so we're working on it.
Yeah. And I think to one of your earlier points, you know, we've spent a lot of time focused on the developers, which is vitally necessary. But now we also want to reach out into kind of new crypto users, and we want to reach out to other blockchain projects and new to Harmony, crypto users, but first time to Harmony. And all of these segments will require tailored messaging.
Right.
So I think it's a good insight from Grind My Gears 07. So well done.
Totally agree.
So the next question actually comes from the social networking platform Twitter. And this is from Crypto.
So formal.
I took it from another. So there's another fantastic podcast I used to listen to, again, defunct now. It's called the Dead Authors Podcast by Paul F. Thompson. And it's this fantastic thing where H.G. Wells goes back in time and grabs an author and brings them forward. And then they have a great talk about. And so he answers questions from the social networking platform Twitter. So thank you, Paul F. Tompkins. Hashtag, credit to you. Harmony is a fantastic blockchain technology-wise, but
Agreed.
it doesn't seem to have the hype of other projects. How do you plan to achieve widespread attention and adoption? And how do you plan on leveraging your passionate social media base to do so?
Okay. Good question. This is related to, I think I answered it in a different way in a different question, but let me address this question specifically. We have to think about the value of hype. I think hype around usage of a product is really valuable, especially if it's like a wallet or an actual product people can use. Well, you have to think Harmony, the product, like what is the Harmony product? It's a blockchain, and its primary customers are people building on the blockchain, which are developers. If you really step back and think about that, how does the role of hype work in that? For developers, not so much. The way you market to developers is quite different than, say, marketing to retail token holders. It's just very, very different. Developers are interested in getting their hands dirty and building and being challenged with very challenging kind of problems. And so it's a very different kind of approach. I think of Stripe. Stripe, the company, is a really, really great model for this. They've created tons of content that meets the needs of developers. And so that's something that we are working on. We recently put out a job description for a content strategist to help us, create really, really compelling content for each of our audience segments, optimize that content, help us distribute the content across all the relevant channels. And so we're working on that. And so hype for developers, it's really, how do we grow developers is kind of the question. Now, hype for kind of the retail audience, I have no idea. That's not really, I don't think about that. Not that it's not important. It's just, in crypto is so narrative and meme driven that, and there's so much noise that I want to kind of cut the signal from the noise. And the signal from my perspective is like, are there on-chain transactions? Are people actually building on this thing?
Yeah.
And that's really what's been the focus. And then how do we grow our community around that is kind of
how do we leverage?
Question.
Yeah. How do
we
leverage?
leverage? Yeah. Right. And that's through the DAOs that you and Lee and others are kind of helping to spin up and support. And so, yeah. So I don't know if that answers the question.
I think it does. I think part of this is really about understanding the role of hype in marketing. And once you understand what segments we're targeting, how does hype help or hurt in that particular market? I think you have, multiple times in this conversation, you've shown that you have a firm hand when it comes to understanding these pieces. So I think it did a good job answering that question.
If you think of, a synonym for hype might be like excitement. That I can relate to. Like, are people excited about Harmony? I think on the one hand, a lot of people are. The technology is pretty amazing, right? We're growing like really, really well. In the last like 6 months, our growth has been amazing. And so I'm very excited about that. But hype around other kind of things that we don't control, such as, price, not so much. That's not what we were focused on.
Yeah. All right. So the next question from the social networking platform Twitter is from harmony24165242. I hope that's not the phone number. Is there
or their social security card?
Or their social security card. Is there a strategy to push for big investments and adoption by large institutions? I think we talked already briefly about adoption with institutions, but there is one of the key differences here in this particular question is around investments from large institutions. How would you respond to that sort of a question?
I have no idea. That's not the world I live in. I'll tell you from an investment perspective, one thing we are we are involved in, excuse me,
Mhm.
there are some projects that are building on Harmony that are also raising money.
Mm.
And so we're involved in that way, helping them to kind of structure their deals, helping them making introductions to some of these teams so that they can raise the money so that they can deploy in Harmony and make sure that they have a go-to-market. And so from a growth perspective, yes, there's some of that going on, but investment from institutions, I don't know.
Okay, it's fair answer. The next question is from somebody who apparently has already visited the crazy.one domain because his Twitter name is Rocket Crazy One, which is great. And obviously they follow you because their question starts by saying, during the last AMA that you did, you said, we do need to update our positioning, which we are working on right now.
Yeah.
Rocket Crazy One wants to understand, how is that going? Has there been more development on positioning? And the reason they ask is there are a lot of community members who are producing content. And so Rocket is hoping that they find a way to streamline that production of content and make sure that it is consistent.
First of all, Rocket's awesome. Second of all, I feel like a broken record because I think I said that statement like 5 weeks ago. And so really his question is, okay, what have you done in 5 weeks? Well, it's been a really busy 5 weeks. Next week we're meeting. Some of us are meeting together as a team in person, and one of the main topics is around this brand refresh and how do we position, like what is the Harmony positioning and messaging across various customer segments.
Right.
And so, in an answer to Rocket, I'm hoping in the next week, maybe 2 weeks, we'll have something a little bit more definite. But until then, this idea of like branding is hard. And I'm not trying to make excuses. It sounds like a big excuse. I totally fully acknowledge that. But I'm hoping in the next 2 weeks, we'll have an answer for Rocket and the other community members that want to create content, but need guidance and help. And I recognize that, and we want to help.
Yeah, I think that's good. And you're right, branding is hard because it's ephemeral. Like it's hard to touch sometimes. But fortunately, we have a team that likes to do hard things. And so I'm very excited for what we produce. This final question, I have to admit that I don't understand it entirely, but the question comes from B Hot Wheels from Twitter. This person says, China just reiterated their restrictions on digital currency, created a whole bunch of conflict in the market. How could these restrictions affect one? And this is the part that I'm not sure I fully understand. Should the tagline payment service change?
That's an interesting question. First off, one thing we haven't talked about in marketing is kind of marketing to various geographies.
That's a good point.
Typically, marketing to kind of the English speaking market, China and Korea are kind of like the main markets for crypto, really. But we have not taken a very geographic approach yet. Okay, I say yet because we're going to. And so for this specific question in China, I don't know about this tagline of payment service. We might have said that in a blog post or two, but I don't remember that as an actual tagline we've used in our branding. And I don't know regulations enough in China, and I'm not a lawyer. So that's a long-winded answer to say I have no idea.
Yeah.
So I just don't know.
I'm right there with you. I think that the various different restrictions on digital currency, everyone is they create a big turmoil in the market. And I don't think that we are prognosticators. I don't think that we're fortune tellers with little, crystal balls that we can gaze into and find what that answer is.
Yeah. I'll say this though. It doesn't scare me at all. I don't think, I think there's a funny meme I saw where it's there was a commentary around like regulations in some country, right? And then they put a fence up, but then around the right and left side of the fence was like an open space and people just walk around it. And I think of crypto as, or blockchain and crypto is kind of like that. It's like regulations come up because for one reason or another, and then kind of crypto finds a way.
Yeah.
We want to be law-abiding citizens wherever we are. Absolutely, and Harmony is regulatory compliant in every way. Mm-hmm. And so, but I just don't know enough about China to make any comments around that.
And sometimes it's really tough to be regulatory compliant because in our space and the stuff that we're dealing with, regulations aren't written yet. There are so many different things that it's such a gray area when it comes to the law. I don't want to.
We're pioneers, and so it comes with the territory.
Yeah, exactly.
It's exciting.
It is. So those are all the questions that we've received. You know, the top questions that we've received from our community. I'm sure that there are tons more. I do have 2 more questions really quickly from you. The first one is, you've had a fantastic career. You've done a lot of really cool things, worked with a lot of cool projects and companies. Is there one accomplishment that you are the most proud of? And this can be crypto or non-crypto.
Does it have to be like career specific?
No,
like just job?
It doesn't have to be. I'm just thinking about, you as Peter, what is the thing that you've accomplished in your life that you are the most proud of?
Well, it's a personal thing. And so maybe I can share that.
Your wife is going to be listening. So if it's not her, she's going to be pretty frustrated.
So this is going to be a surprise to everybody, but my wife and I have 10 kids. And we've adopted 5 of them. And so I think the thing I'm most proud of is my family and growing our family through adoption. I'm a really, really lucky dad.
Yeah.
And so I think outside of career, outside of all of that, it's my family.
Yeah. How do you not have 13 children behind you on the Zoom call? This is amazing, right? Like
something, yeah.
I did know about you. It's one of the things that I've always just been incredibly impressed with. I come from a large family. I only have 3 children myself, but understanding the intensity, the sacrifice, the love that comes from a large family, like it's impressive. My final question for you is, how do people contact you? What is your social handles? What's the best way that you would like our community to reach out and bother you about marketing more and more?
Yeah, for sure. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Shmula, SHMULA. You can just DM me there. You can email me at peter@harmony.one. You can reach me on Telegram. I'm Poppy Official, PAPI Official. And I'll respond as best and as quickly as I can. Yeah. So before we get off, could I say maybe one thing?
No, you're not allowed to. This is my show. No, okay. Of course. Are you kidding? Anything you want to pitch? Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah. Well, I always want to leave off with kind of bringing the audience back to the original vision of Harmony. This idea that Stephen had many years ago around, consensus for 10 billion people. It feels, first of all, the word consensus has some baggage, blockchain baggage to it, but the way Stephen thinks about consensus is really interesting. He doesn't think about consensus in terms of like blockchain, but more around people getting along and people not thinking the same, but being able to communicate and getting along. And I love that vision that he has. And as we think about branding, I want some of his vision to really come alive and bring us back to this idea of like connecting and bringing people together. Blockchain is a wonderful technology. It's still in its infancy, but I'm really, really energized and optimistic about its future. I love Harmony, and I'm so grateful to be at Harmony, and that Stephen is and the rest of the team is just amazing. We love the community. We are grateful for the support that the community gives. And also a lot of the feedback. The feedback's great. And so I guess I just want to leave off with letting everybody know that we're working for you. And our job is to grow the chain. Our job is to grow developers on Harmony and making sure that there are on-chain transactions from actual human beings. And that Harmony as a chain continues on way, way after the rest of us like die and leave this earth. That's really the goal.
Yeah.
And so how do we do that? Well, we have to think really long term, and that's kind of like Stephen's vision. And so we, want to leave that off with you.
Of course. Well, thank you. And I agree. To our communities. So those are our questions. That's our AMA. Awesome. I do want to give a fantastic thank you to all of our moderators. I'm not going to name them all because I know I'm going to miss names and mispronounce names, but we have some of the best community moderators in the business. They work tirelessly. They answer questions. They are very supportive. And they're
amazing. They really are amazing.
Yeah. Every single time I have a conversation with them, I'm always highly impressed. So thank you so much to all of our moderators for helping put this together. I will also say, you guys, our community has been growing by leaps and bounds. We are now, over 20,000 followers on Reddit. We have 150,000 followers on Twitter. Our Telegram and our Discord channels are growing dramatically. And this is just, as we like to say here at Harmony, day one. And so we are so excited to engage with you and to do more. So from the Harmony Garage, I am Samuel Harrison. There's Peter. You guys, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.